Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Very interesting story coming out about Manchester United's transfer priority for the summer. Really surprising because it's coming from a source that we know for a fact gets information from the club. And I would say it's bordering on the ridiculous. Absolutely bordering on the ridiculous, the sort of signing that this would be for Manchester United. We'll talk about that in a minute. I just want to apologise because we're normally live around 10:30 on a Saturday morning, but I had a few too many drinks last night, and anybody who was watching my Football Manager stream, we were celebrating a very big FA Cup win against Port Vale. So the Alvino did flow last night, so I'm a little bit late. So apologies for that, because I know people get very moody about the show not being late, but people do have lives, and sometimes on a weekend we're not going to be as accurate as we are during the week. At least you've got a show, and what a show it is. It's a big show because, well, let me just read you it. This is coming from The Athletic. This is coming, and it says, Erling Haaland is Manchester United's prime target up front, but United could be in the conversation for Kylian Mbappe too if PSG fail to win the Champions League. Harry Kane is also admired. This is from Laurie Whitwell, who also say sources expect only one marquee signing to arrive at Man United this summer, 2 at a push, with the rest dependent on players being sold. You know what? I mean, people often ask, what level of incompetence do we have at Manchester United? I would say we've got the elite level of incompetence. Gold star. Absolutely the best incompetence you could get around recruitment and what's good for our team. Now, maybe I, I'm going to surprise a few people on this, but this story, I mean, look, first of all, the journalist who is writing about it asks questions in the press conference, works for a very credible, I think you have to pay a £5 a month to get their stories. So they're well tapped in to football. Now, I don't think that journalist writes that story unless he's getting some indication that that's what United want to do. So I'll park that there and say it's not coming from the Daily Star. It's not from John Fish from the Daily Star, and I don't know whether even he exists. It is coming from somebody that does get info from the club. And I always say this about Manchester Evening News as well. They do get info from the club. So you've always got to think about that when you're reacting to this sort of a story. So if Haaland is our prime striker target, this terrifies me because that's the budget gone. That is the budget gone. And I think look, I'm not a fool. I'm not going to sit here and go, I don't want Haaland, I don't want Mbappe, I don't want Harry Kane. But what stuns and amazes me is that Manchester United would even waste their. If I was in a meeting with Woodward and Matt Judge and Ollie and Karaki and the head scout, and I was there, and they'd asked me in, and they said, right, first one up, it's prime target number 1. It's Erling. I've trained him as a kid. We missed out on him when he went to Dortmund from Salzburg. I want him. I want Erling Haaland up front. And I would go, Ollie, be quiet a minute. Let me just have my say. I'm in this room. I'm not a fly on the wall, although I'd love to be a fly on the wall if I wasn't invited in. What is going on in this boardroom? Well, we're talking about transfer targets. No, seriously, what is going on? You know, when you're stood on the side of the touchline, I know you don't make subs, but are you actually engaging your brain in what's going on, or are you thinking about your Tesco shop? Because we do not need a striker at the moment. It's the icing on the cake signing. You haven't baked the cake yet. Get some eggs, get some milk, get some flour. Don't even know if that's how you make a cake, but make a cake before you buy the icing. What are you doing going after Erling Haaland? And Mbappe, I tell you what, give me that list. Give me the list. Ed, give me the list. Give me the list. Shh. I'm shitting it out down a toilet and you're never getting it back. What a stupid list. Get me a pen, get a paper, get me a whiteboard. We'll do the old flip charts. I'll tell you what. Let's draw some pictures, right? Manchester United, big problems. Number 1, bang. Centre back. 2, CDM. You could almost put them number 1. Number 2, right winger. Now we'll get to striker. What part of that flowchart do you think we need to spend all our budget on a bloody striker? And also, the best bit about this, do you want to know the best bit about this? It's like bathing in shit and then going to a party and trying to pull the most attractive person there. You're going to chase them round and they're going to run away because you stink. They're not going to come to you. You're just going to waste your time. Have a shower and go for something more realistic. Do not try and sign Erling Haaland. Do not try and waste everybody's time on Erling Haaland. But what I would say on a serious note, although amongst all the jokes, I am being serious. On a serious note, I'm going to be very interested how many of our fan base actually fall for this. How much of our fan base actually think it's exciting? How much of our fan base actually spend time invested in an Erling Haaland or a Kylian Mbappe or a Harry Kane signing? Because I tell you what, for real, if Manchester United are really going to progress, that conversation should not even be going on. In fact, I wonder how that story's even got out. Why is that story out there? And I would say, no, nothing against where it's being played out from the journalist or the outlet, but who's given that information and what's the motive of that information? What's the motive to put out that Manchester United's prime striker target is Erling Haaland, and if not, maybe Mbappe, and they do admire Harry Kane? What's the motive of that story? Right here, right now. What is it? And I put the questions to you. What's the motive behind it? Because anybody with a brain, a Man United fan, knows that's not the thing to do. So why is that story going out there? Is it going out there to feed a bit of positivity at a time when we're not playing well? Is it going out there because we actually are incompetent and think we can buy a player that we can't get? I don't know. Answers to you. Personally, I think it's being put out there because we've been doing this for 8 years. Bale, Ronaldo, all these big players that we're never going to get, but you put it out there and it generates interest in your brand, I suppose. I don't know, but it makes no sense because the scary alternative is that we actually think we're going to get him, and that scares the life out of me for 2 reasons. One, we can't get him. I don't know why he would come to us, and we would get outbid by any club with any competence. 2, if we did get him, oh my Christ, what's going to happen to United next season with Erling Haaland in the team? Because some people will think he'll score 50 goals and we'll win the league. But people who actually watch us will go, he will spend his time frustrated up front, and within 6 months, Mino Raiola will be saying he wants to go to Real Madrid. That's the truth. Because he is not scoring goals in that United side. Because Erling Haaland will not solve our defensive issues, and he will not solve our lack of creativity from the midfield. He will be there, stood, counting his fingers on the halfway line, waiting for the ball, bored as everybody else is, watching United's lack of creativity at the moment. So it makes no sense. It's nonsensical as a signing, and it terrifies me that we might actually be doing it. So if anyone knows where that list is with Haaland, bin it, burn it, delete the email, put it in, and don't just put it in the recycling bin. Delete your recycling bin, grab the computer and chuck it out the office and jump on it and smash it with a hammer. It has to be destroyed. It has to be destroyed. Erling Haaland, top transfer priority. And people will be saying, oh, look, listen to this idiot. Haaland's one. Yeah. I'm not an idiot though, am I? Because I actually watch my club and I know that buying a striker is like buying a comfy seat for a bike that's got no wheels. Oh, I can sit down on it. It's really comfortable. It's got no wheels. It's not going anywhere. We need to buy the wheels before we buy the luxury seat. And there's no doubt that Haaland is a luxury item, but it's not what Manchester United need at the moment. We need a centre defensive midfielder, probably as much as we need a centre-back now. And we definitely need some creativity. Haaland would benefit from a team that plays a higher line and is more defensively secure, that frees its midfield, that is also creative and also has a winger in it that can create chances for him. Haaland in them circumstances would be brilliant. But we're 3 signings away from even looking at Haaland, and those 3 signings should be costing us around 150 million quid. So Haaland, forget about it. Mark, you said yesterday that Ollie is an apprentice learning his trade. Why are we hiring an apprentice after 8 years of not winning the title? This is part of the problem. We are lowering expectations and second isn't good enough, says Ben Anderson. Hi Mark, do you think it's United as a football institution best interest that Ollie continues to manage beyond this season, says Andre. And hi Mark, I think if we get a centre-back and Sancho would be a good transfer window with recent comments made by Ollie in the transfers, says Srinkath. Sancho and a centre-back still doesn't solve our centre midfield issue, does it? I mean, look, to be honest with you, the problem against Crystal Palace wasn't the defence. It wasn't the defence. It was the midfield. Crystal Palace, to me, never looked like they were going to score. And even the save that Henderson made at the end, he was offside. So they never looked like they were going to score, but neither did we. And so I think Wednesday night for me, I've always said this, I think we desperately need a proper CDM. And people will say, well, if Pogba stays, we're fine. Pogba's not a CDM. If Pogba did stay, and I'm not sure he will, but if Pogba did stay, he'd be an even better box-to-box midfielder if we had a proper CDM. So this is what makes me laugh about people saying, well, if Pogba stays, we don't need a CDM. When Pogba plays CDM, he plays so deep. because we haven't got a CDM next to him, whether it's Matic, McTominay or Fred. They ain't CDMs anymore. And well, Matic isn't one anymore, and Fred and McTominay never were. So even if Pogba did stay, we still need a CDM that would free him up more anyway. And imagine a Manchester United side with a prime Kante and Pogba next to him and Bruno ahead of him. Kante would just say, Pogba, push forward more. Bruno, never come back. I don't want to see you on the halfway line ever again. You're divorced. And Kante would just run the midfield. So we desperately need a centre defensive midfielder. In my opinion, I think our board put big deals like this out so it will go in the whole transfer window and then we don't get anyone, says Verishan. And Haaland is the current United side, is like Lewis Hamilton in a Fiat, says Bay. Well, look, the interesting thing I can give you as well, because remember, Christian Falk is a German. I was going to say Christian Falk is a German. Christian Falk is a German journalist. And he, I don't know why he's been sort of almost ridiculed a little bit recently and called a bit of a fraud, because he was bang on about Bellingham and Haaland over a year ago, bang on about Bayern Munich and Upamecano a year before it happened. I think he's very good on German transfer news. I think people think he's a bit of a joke because of the Calhanoglu story, and I think there was another one. But what he has said is that Manchester United, remember we were linked to Andre Silva, who's also playing in Germany at the moment. I think, is it Eintracht Frankfurt? He said there's no truth in that at the moment, but maybe there will be at some point, but there's no truth in Man United after Andre Silva, the striker. However, what he said is that maybe that is an indication that United are already starting to look at alternatives, because he doesn't believe that Manchester United are even in the race for Haaland, and that potentially they've given up. So he's in Germany and he's not getting anything that United are in the Haaland race. And to be honest with you, that's pretty much what is out there, that United have got no chance of signing Erling Haaland. So it's very interesting that you've got German sources basically saying, look, United, not much chance of getting Haaland, probably not even in the race potentially. And then you've got British sources saying, oh, United's top target is Haaland. And you think, that journalist has got very good contacts at United. Why is this story being fed out to us when we're not playing particularly well before a Manchester derby? And it's like, you've got, I've got no problem with it. I just think you need to be eyes open to potentially what's going on. And all I would say is, why are we being linked to a player we won't get, who's too expensive and is not a priority? And why is it being pushed now by decent outlets in England? And I think, if you are Manchester United, at the moment people are getting a bit pissed off. They're talking about contracts, they're talking about the manager. We need a bit of positivity around this club, because they probably know that tomorrow there could be a lot of negativity on Monday. You build from the back, not just on the field, but in terms of building a team. Pep didn't do anything until he sorted the defence out, says Mark Dobby. Do you think Bissouma would be able to step up and deal with the pressure of playing in a United shirt? I'll be surprised if we get Rice, says Simran. I think Declan Rice wants to go to Chelsea, and I think you've always got to assume that. Hi Mark, I agree with the priorities. Varane, Ndidi and Ndama Traore for me. Realistic budget and realistic targets. We need to build a team, says Ben. Well, in the same journalist in The Athletic was talking about, also spoke about Varane, and said that there maybe is an opportunity for United there. Interestingly, Grealish was mentioned as a player that long term could end up playing centre midfield. And Man United, I saw obviously Flex last night was talking about Grealish, and I think with Grealish, for me, that's... it's a story that is... I think the thing is, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would love Grealish. He loved him last year. He wanted him and he got Van der Beek. How do you go back for Grealish? Because it's like, you've still got Van der Beek. That whoever was involved in that Van der Beek thing, to go back and get Grealish would compound the mistake we made. Like, we've already spent money on the Grealish in Van der Beek, and to go and get Grealish now is just would be, again, wasting money on something that you've already done but not used. I mean, as I said, I can't believe that Donny van der Beek has only been injured for a week or two over the course of the season, and yet he's played less Premier League minutes than Van Dijk, who's been out for most of the season. I mean, it's just a total misuse of a signing, our biggest summer transfer signing. But I do like Grealish, but what is Grealish for us now? Does he now fall into the luxury category? Because he's not a centre midfielder. If Pogba goes, he's not going to play the box-to-box role at Manchester United, is he? You could maybe push Bruno back, but then you lose what Bruno's all about. I like Grealish, but I just don't see how... I don't see him as a priority, because the priorities have to be centre defensive midfielder, centre back, and right wing. So again, and he's like Haaland in a way. He's not cheap. He's like, he would be your most significant signing. And if this story is true that United are only going to make one marquee signing, well, you can't buy Grealish, you can't buy Haaland, because we need two marquee signings in CDM and centre back and right winger. So I don't know what's going on. But the problem is, and the scary thing is, you sit here and you go, is this not, in a fearful way, would it surprise me if these are the sort of deals that we're working on? Because we've just not got a clue. And if we are working on those deals, who does it reflect badly on? Does it reflect badly on Woodward and Judge and the board? Or does it reflect badly on the coaching network? I mean, because you've got to throw it back sometimes and say, if we were looking for Haaland or a striker or a Harry Kane or an Mbappe, that's got to be coming from the coaching staff. And why would Solskjaer and his coaches say, yeah, if you can get me anything, get me Haaland? Why would he say that? Does he not realise that that would not solve our problem? The only thing I could say on a positive is, obviously these are world-class strikers. Is it not more about playing on the counter? Because Haaland's fast, Mbappe is fast. Cavani has done a very good job for us when he's been fit, but is he fast? And Martial is fast, but he's lost his way a bit. So, maybe we're looking for this. I mean, is it not, I suppose to be blunt, is it not a very basic level of coaching to say, spend all my budget on the best striker you can get? And as Mark said, you build from the back. Just because you buy a goal scorer doesn't mean he's going to score goals if you're not creating him chances. But I don't know. I don't believe Manchester United are genuinely looking at a striker. But you've got to take the story for what it is, and there does seem to be something in it. But it would be worrying. It would be really worrying. And of course, look, if Haaland was our signing in the summer, everyone would go absolutely ecstatic. I mean, I would be very happy with it, in the sense of, if we signed it, I'd be shocked and stunned, and I'd be like, bloody hell, he's a good player. But I'd have massive fears about where that would lead as a football team, because, like you say, it is like putting Lewis Hamilton in a Fiat. He would be out of his comfort zone and out of chances. How about Billy Gilmour can dictate play from base of midfield and break lines with his passing? Not getting a seat on Tuchel's bench would suit Donny, says Derek. I mean, I quite like Gilmour at Chelsea, but I just don't think it's a player that you can bring in, to be honest. Why do we need Haaland? We've already got Mason Greenwood, says Rishab. I mean, look, I must admit, before we move on, I do think there is a bit of a stagnation, a little bit of fatigue. And I think as a fan base, I'm not talking about me personally, but as a fan base, I feel, and I don't know whether this is fair, I feel that the fan base has become a little bit uninspired by our front line. I think last season, Greenwood, Rashford and Martial scored nearly 60 goals between them. Maybe they did, I can't remember. I think it was 50 something. And they were all young and they were all exciting, and it was like, wow, if we can just, if we can get a bit, add Sancho and it gets even better. This season, Greenwood's had a bit of an up and down season. Rashford's had a bit of an up and down season. Martial's had a very down season. Cavani's come in, but it's a short-term thing. It is, Cavani's done well, but there's no future in Cavani, is there? I mean, I think he might be here next year, but that'll be it. A season can move very quickly when you realise that the season's over and you're not in a title race. So Cavani offers us nothing beyond next year. He's not particularly mobile. He's a little bit injury prone as well. So I think we have sort of lost a bit of desire and appreciation and excitement in our front line, which is sad, really, because I still believe that Mason Greenwood can be anything he wants to be. I believe that Rashford could become even better than he is and lose that, final ball issue. I still think there's a player in Martial. But I do agree that our front line has lost its spark. The problem is, have they as individuals lost their spark, or has the coaching made them lose their spark? And to be honest with you, probably a little bit of both, but probably more on the coaching, because, as I said, I've said this a few times, you've said it as well, going into the game tomorrow, going into Chelsea last week, going into Liverpool and Man City in January and Arsenal, we all said it. Very high chance Bruno will have a shit game tomorrow. Very high chance Rashford will, Greenwood will, Cavani will, because they won't get any service. I don't see. And look, I don't want any plaudits for this, and neither should you. I don't think it's rocket science to sit here and say Bruno will have a bad game tomorrow, Rashford will have a bad game tomorrow, Greenwood, if he starts, will have a bad game, Dan James will have a bad game, Cavani will have a bad game, Martial, whoever starts in our front four positions will have a bad game. Not necessarily, they might contribute to that themselves, but mainly because they won't get any of the ball. And there endeth the lesson, because you could drop Haaland in that team and he'd have a bad game as well. So why are we looking for a striker? Tight-arse Woodward's perfect transfer summer. Mings, Longstaff, Sarr, proven and cheap like himself. Too bad King is not available, says Fikret. Congratulations on 1 million subs, says AJ Singh. Keep it up. Not saying we should do this, but we know Chelsea are in for a keeper and maybe Declan Rice. Could we not do a swap for Kante with Dino if they go for Rice? The trouble with Kante, AJ Singh, is that he's not the player everybody thinks he is anymore. He's not the N'Golo Kante of Leicester or first couple of years at Chelsea. I mean, he shouldn't be past his sell-by date. He's not 30 yet, but he's not at that level. And again, how many players are we going to buy from rivals that they don't want anymore? So I don't think Kante is the solution. I'd much rather try a Bissouma or a Zakaria or something like that, who might not work out as well. But I think those, we did this with Matic, and we got a little bit out of Matic, but we never got the Chelsea Matic. We didn't get the Chelsea Matic. We got a gradually declining Matic, and we did it with Sanchez, with Arsenal as well. We've got to avoid those sort of things. Anyway. What else did I want to talk about? Just very interesting, this one as well. 4.2 million is what Manchester United reportedly have to pay Sporting Lisbon if Bruno Fernandes wins Premier League Player of the Year. 4.2 million. So that's one signing we could be making this summer. But I joked on Twitter yesterday. I said Bruno should check what's going into his food in Carrington, because he's dropped off, hasn't he, over the last few weeks? And I'm just wondering if Man United are trying to get to save 4.2 million, because he should win Player of the Year. However, he's in danger of not winning Player of the Year because he looks absolutely off his game at the moment. I think the logical explanation for why Bruno's dropped off is probably I wouldn't necessarily say tiredness, because I think you do get tired as a player, but when the team's doing well and you've got players around you on your level, that tiredness doesn't necessarily hit you as much as it would at the moment. I think Bruno's problem at the moment is that he's carrying that team. Like, you saw him against Palace, you saw him against Chelsea. There's not a lot going on other than through Bruno. If Bruno has a bad game, then that's it, and that shouldn't be it. So there's 11 players on that pitch, and I think at the moment Bruno, and also teams that are wise to Bruno, they're closing the gaps on him, they're sticking by him, they're man marking him in a way. So I mean, Bruno needs to find some form very, very quickly, or he's not gonna win Player of the Year. But if he does win Player of the Year, he's going to get 4.2 million going to Sporting Lisbon. We do need Pogba back. I think Pogba would help out a lot. But it is interesting, because Man United won't be happy about having to pay 4 million. But there you go. I hope they do have to pay it, because that would mean he's won Player of the Year. A little bit of an update on David De Gea. David De Gea is apparently, when he does come back, it'll only be 5 days isolation. There was talk of 10 days, so he could be back in time for, well, it depends how long they're going to let him. I think the baby was born yesterday, wasn't it? They'll probably give him a few days. Could be back in training by mid next week, maybe. Probably more likely to be back. Well, I think he'll be back for the FA Cup game against Leicester. But I suppose it depends what Ollie does now, doesn't it? Because it could change a little bit. It could be that David De Gea goes into the Europa League and the FA Cup, and Dean Henderson does the Premier League games for the rest of the season. So we'll have to see how it works out, but they will be still sharing that role one way or another. I think that unfortunately with the goalkeeping situation, and to be honest with you, I'm sort of disengaged now. I just don't really see the point in being, I always feel that this season we should have had one goalkeeper, but we've obviously shared that role out, and I think that has to continue to the end of the season now. And then at the end of the season, we're going to have to make a decision. So, you can't completely bench a goalkeeper that's on 375k a week just because he's gone and had seen the birth of his child, considering his last game was man of the match, and you can't completely bench Dean Henderson, who is a very good goalkeeper in himself. So they're just going to have to share the role, aren't they? Pogba for Varane would be perfect swap deal. Do you agree, Mark? Says Pranay. It would be a good swap deal. Pranay, but what would you do with your midfield? I have a feeling we're going to buy a couple of young ones and no one else, says Anka. I just think, in general, when you look at Manchester United's situation, and I also talk about the next 24 hours with the game against Man City, AC Milan on Thursday, West Ham next Sunday, then AC Milan, then Leicester in the Cup. I believe that these next 5 games are absolutely huge. And I think the most important thing is, can we get any of these creative players back fit? Can we get Pogba back fit? Can we get Van der Beek back fit and actually use him? Because I don't think I think Man United have got plenty of Duracell bunnies. I think we've got plenty of people that can go out there and run about a bit. But what we don't have is creators. We don't have a spark. And you can't start a fire without a spark. And Bruno's spark is dying. He's like that fire that's just, glowing. And it needs something on that fire to get it burning again, and I don't think you're going to get it burning from McTominay, Fred or Matic. So we desperately do need to get Pogba back. And if Van der Beek, I don't even know why I use the word Van der Beek, because he's not going to use him anyway, is he? So we just need Pogba back. We have Donny to play as the pivot for midfield, says Pranay. Yeah, but it's not going to happen, is it? But I do think that the next 5 games are huge going into that international break. I mean, I don't know where we're going to be in the international break. Let's have a little game. Where are we going to be in the international break, do you think? Do you think we're going to be still in the Europa League, still in the FA Cup and still in a race for top 4? Do you think we'll be out of 1, still in 2, out of 2, still in 1, out of all 3? We won't be out of a top 4 race in the international break, because it's impossible for us, even if we lose against Man City and West Ham. I think we'll still be in the top 4, because nobody can close 6 points on us and take us out the top 4. But we could be in jeopardy in that top 4 position, and we have still got Spurs and Liverpool to come. So we are in a very, very, very interesting state. And then only 2 months after that, you've got the end of the season, the transfer window, Solskjaer's contract. So we've got, whether you like it or not, I almost feel like we're in that similar position when the story broke back in October about Man United having contact with Pochettino, and a lot of fans were like, get Pochettino in, Ollie out. And I remember saying on the show, I'm actually very relaxed. You're never relaxed. You want to win tomorrow, you want to win against Milan, you want to win things, but I'm actually quite relaxed about the situation, because it's not our decision to make. Decisions need to be made. They may be bad decisions. We're probably expecting bad decisions, but there are decisions that have to be made. And I think when decisions have to be made, you know that, and you hope that those decisions will be the right ones. But bringing it back to the immediate, Manchester City, Milan twice, West Ham in the league and Leicester in the Cup, can you go into those 5 games playing the way you did against Palace and Chelsea and hoping to nick a goal and keep a clean sheet? I think if that's our approach over the next 5 games, we might get through in the FA Cup, we might get through AC Milan, but I don't think we're going to win all the games 1-0. So, and 2 draws against Man City and West Ham, that's not really good enough. We need to find 3 points before that international break. People will say, well, maybe West Ham, but the way West Ham are playing at the moment, all right, they won't have Lingard. But I think Solskjaer needs to find a creative way. As we said in the press conference yesterday, he sat there and said, we are playing on the front foot. We're playing a high press. We're being more positive. Well, everybody I've spoken to and everyone on social media is saying, what is he on about? But I would say, for him to say that publicly, he genuinely believes that that's what they're doing. The problem is, Ollie, it's not being replicated on the pitch. Your intent is not happening on the pitch. So he needs to get that out there. People now understanding Pogba needing good players around him wasn't an excuse. Same thing is happening to Bruno, says Nathan. Well, no. Yes and no, Nathan. I disagree with you a little bit, because Pogba hasn't always been there with Bruno. Bruno's year, if you look at Bruno's year last year, over half of it, Pogba wasn't there and Bruno was still doing what he was doing. I think where you're right is that this team is tired, its heads have dropped, and now Bruno needs Pogba, because there's just no creativity in that team apart from him. So yeah, he does need Pogba at the moment, but he has done it without Pogba before, and Pogba did it without Bruno before. But I think they do need each other right here, right now, definitely. The only thing with getting Haaland is the fact that his agent's Raiola. I think the only thing is that it's not the right signing, Matthew Pugh. Do you think De Gea will walk straight back into the team? Hendo plays amazing and Ollie will be scared to drop him because of the backlash from the media, says Owen Brown. I do think he'll walk back straight into the team. I don't know whether he'll walk straight back into the Premier League team. I think that Ollie would be a complete and utter hypocrite if, when David De Gea comes back, he says, yeah, you're not getting any game time. I'm using Dean in the Europa League, the FA Cup and the Premier League. I think David De Gea would have a right to say, hold on a minute, I've done nothing wrong this season. You've made me share the role with Dean and I've done nothing wrong. I I'm man of the match against Chelsea. I go to the birth of my child. I come back and you tell me I'm not getting any game time. What's going on? You're right, David. You're in. You're back in. But no, they'll share the role. What might happen is that Henderson might get the Premier League and then David De Gea goes into the Europa League and the FA Cup role, the cup keeper. Which, to be honest with you, if you're David De Gea, I wouldn't mind being the cup goalkeeper because we've got a chance of winning the Europa League. We've got a chance of winning the FA Cup. We ain't got a chance of winning the Premier League. If I was David De Gea, I don't know about you, I would rather be the Europa League goalkeeper until the end of the season than being the Premier League goalkeeper because the Premier League goalkeeper's not winning anything. The Europa League one is. So if I was David, I'd be like, oh, I've lost the Premier League role, have I now? Oh, I'll just have to make do with the Europa League. I would rather be the Europa League goalkeeper because you've got a chance of winning a medal. But yeah, they will share the role. They'll have to share the role. Screw what the media say. Ollie shouldn't give a shit about what the media say. He shouldn't give a shit what we say. I think with the media and with fan opinion, you take it on board, but you've got to be your own person. You can learn things from it, but you can't be dictated by it. Is Ollie not playing Donny because Ed signed him against his wishes? Well, I think Ollie gets on with Ed Woodward. Do you think we can win tomorrow, says Clayton? I'm going for a draw tomorrow. I'm going to go with the draw, yeah. Mark, we swap Pogba for Varane, then spend 60 million at the board for one marquee signing on Declan Rice. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that, Pranay. I wouldn't mind that. I do. I mean, just very quickly, because I need to sort of end the show. But please smash a like on the video, by the way. Let's see if we can get to 2,000 likes. I do think that the excitement of keeping Pogba, which I would be excited, will cost us a centre defensive midfielder or a centre back or a right winger. If Pogba goes and you use Pogba as part of a swap deal or the funds from Pogba to bring a player in, what I'm basically saying is if Pogba goes, that could bring your centre back in, and then you use the money that you've got to bring your CDM or your right winger in. And then if you sell a couple of other players, so basically if Pogba goes, it funds one transfer. You use the money you had anyway to fund the second transfer, and then the third transfer comes from selling maybe Henderson, Lingard and another. So the money is there to get 3 marquee signings. But I think if Pogba stays, you probably only make 1 or 2. If Pogba goes, you're going to make 3. The problem is, if Pogba goes, we're not looking for a box-to-box player. We're looking for a CDM. So you would have to use Van der Beek next season. And that's the thing. Why is he not used him this year if he's going to be Pogba's replacement next year? And I know some people like that story. He's not using Donny because he's a replacement next year. But that's stupid. That is stupid. If he's good enough, you'd use him anyway. Maybe not as much, but you would use him. He doesn't hardly use him. Heard one United CDM started a zombie series after recent performances. The Walking Fred, says Rich. And I would sell Dean and keep Romero as the backup keeper. What are your thoughts, says Verishan? Romero's gone. I think Romero's been treated, in his opinion, badly. And it's about just taking the wages and running his contract down, I think. I think United have messed that up big time. And it's interesting because Romano was talking about this, that Manchester United got virtually no money for Alexis Sanchez, and I think he was saying that we still had to pay about 7 million in wages to get him off the books. So we lost a huge amount on Alexis Sanchez. We didn't make any money. But what Romano said is over the contract we saved a lot of money, but we had to let him go for nothing and pay off some of his wages to get him out of the club. But it's way less than we would have had to pay if he'd stayed at the club. So again, you know, Man United not the best when it comes to transfers, as we know. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. I tell you what I'm doing at lunchtime. Tarkovsky, Chris Wood, it's Sean Dyche against that Spanish Arteta. I'm doing that on That's Football at 12:30. Burnley, Arsenal. Come on, Burnley. Do me a favour for once. So I'm going to be live on That's Football at 12:30 for a watch along. God, it's only 40 minutes. We've got a couple of videos for you. One's going up this afternoon, and then I'll be live at 8 o'clock on here. So thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on video. Subscribe if you're new, bottom right hand corner, and I'll speak to you a bit on That's Football if you're going to join me, or back on here a little bit later. Have a good day. Speak to you in a bit.